That the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Dr Wayne Mapp.
Mr Speaker, thank you for allowing me to take a brief call on this bill, and it will be relatively brief because I think it would be fair to say Mr Robinson has really canvassed all the possible range of issues that could be canvassed. I think it's important to emphasise that the change being sought here was very much at the request of the Royal Society. And the Royal Society currently essentially consists of the scientific and technological community. I would like the branches of the Society to actually consider the implications of that. This was actually scientists and technologists requesting a broadening of their own scope and purposes to include humanities. They themselves recognised that the existing purposes of the Society were simply too narrow. So they've incorporated the humanities. That actually lines up also with the general view that prevailed in Marsden funding arrangements as well. Again, that was largely, well, in fact, almost exclusively prior to that, convened essentially by the scientific community. So this was actually, in effect, the scientific community reaching out to broaden the scope of research. It's not entirely surprising that that would be the case, because in smaller nations like New Zealand, the Royal Societies tend to cover both science and humanities. Larger nations like the United Kingdom, of course, it would be somewhat different. But in our case, it is necessary that the one society cover the full range of academic endeavour. So it was a somewhat unusual situation that the Society, which is very significantly government funded and indeed administers a number of government funds, also nevertheless had to have their local member based, their head office being based in Wellington Central. They therefore had to request their local member to advance the bill. But this is perhaps one of those occasions where it's actually quite a good thing that the public can see a collaboration across the Parliament around a common cause in this. And I think it would be fair to say, and I note that the opposition spokesman on science and innovation is present in the House, there is a broad consensus around what is appropriate in this area. I would note, of course, we clearly have our small differences from time to time, but they tend not to be so much as to purposes, but rather extent, if I could put it that way. And I guess we in the government have to deal with the reality of actually being in government and the fiscal constraints. Those parties that are in opposition perhaps could take a slightly freer range about things and indeed are inclined to do precisely that. One of the interesting things, the previous government was in office for 9 years. They had plenty of opportunity to do all sorts of things. During a time of amazingly large surpluses, $10 billion, and it took until 2009 for them to introduce an R&D tax credit, because I've noted what the interjector just said then. Just at the point of the global financial crisis. They, of course, seemingly are still operating in the paradigm of $10 billion surpluses, but I actually would like to remind them from time to time that the world has changed just a little, and it's probably necessary to change policies just a little to accommodate that reality. I also want to remind members across the House, in fact, because I think this is something we should be able to all celebrate. So from 2008 through to 2010, there was a significant gain in the total share of GDP of New Zealand that is spent on science and innovation, or under the more traditional nomenclature R&D. From 1.19% in 2008, that was actually the last year, I think, of the previous government, to 1.3%, 1.30% in 2010. Now, that's around about an 8% increase at a time of economic constraint. Significant, isn't it, I think, that in a time of economic constraint, businesses, universities and government have recognised the need to drive up that share, compared to the time of what one would have to fairly say was reasonably halcyon times for the economy, not due to the previous government, of course, but rather to global economic conditions, and they were not able to achieve the sort of gains that were sought to be, that were needed to be made. Now, I'm not going to quibble about these things too much. I think it's possibly inappropriate to do on this bill to excess, but I would just sort of draw these points out to the attention of the House. And can I say to members in the House, those statistics are from Statistics New Zealand, therefore highly reliable, and came out yesterday, I might note. And so, Mr. Speaker, I should say, it is that I'm very happy to share in a collaboration in the House to advance this bill. The changes that have been made are perfectly appropriate because they're more general in nature than the bill as presented, so I think we would all agree with that. And also note the other change. I guess you can take the point, isn't it, that the nature of this bill, how quickly it was resolved by the committee, by the length of the report, which covers, in fact, 4 short paragraphs. So I think it would be fair to say this bill is being, I think, going to be passed by unanimity, and it'll go through the committee stages smoothly and then to the third reading. So, Mr. Speaker, can I join with my colleagues in the House in supporting this bill and indeed supporting the endeavours of all of our scientific community and indeed other researchers in the humanities for their hard work over recent years to improve the understanding of the importance of science and innovation in our wider community. And I think everyone would concede that there has been a significant change over the last 2 years, and the data demonstrated the reality of that. Thank you.